My name is Aries, and I want to have a conversation. I want to open up a conversation, primarily with my brothers. My sisters are welcome to join in too, but this is a conversation that I think that is long overdue, and one that we as men need to start having with each other more often. And it's about how we treat each other and how we treat the women, not only in our lives but in the world in general. I see men doing a lot of things that, to be quite honest, make me ashamed to be a man. And for a long time it hasn't felt very safe for me to be a man in a man's world. And I retreated hid inside my feminine. Got called a puff a lot for being an effeminate guy, for being a guy in touch with his feminine side. And, you know, that felt safe there for a while, because I got to kind of hide from all the atrocities that I see men partaking in around the world. All the greed, all the corruption, all the war, all the murder, all the racism. And, you know, women aren't immune to these things either, but primarily I witness men doing it. And it makes it feel very unsafe for a lot of men to be men in that environment. And so after years and years and years of hiding in my feminine, I've started to embrace my masculine once again. A different kind of masculinity to that which we're raised in our culture to understand is normal or acceptable. You know, particularly in Australian culture, where if you're not a bloke, if you don't drink beer, if you don't get into a few scraps, you know, you're not a man. And I've never been one of those guys. A few people might beg to differ, but the truth is I've always been a very sensitive, soft and gentle person. I've always worn my heart on my sleeve. I've always been highly emotional and very vulnerable. Emotionable. I like it. It's a cross between emotional and vulnerable. I've always been a very emotional and vulnerable person, and I used to think it was my weakness, and now I understand it's actually my superpower. And so, calling on that superpower, I'm wanting to reach out to other men who know the difference between being a bloke and being a real man, a good man, a man who cares deeply about himself, about his own well-being, his own peace and his own happiness, but also that of the world around him, particularly his women. Because we're at a time in history where that feminine energy is rising again, and we need to be in support of that. We need to nurture this rebirthing of the divine feminine energy that's happening on our planet right now. Because men have held power for way too long, and they fucked it up really badly too. It's time we let the women have a go, and it's time we're in support of that. It's time we put our egos aside, and it's time we started nurturing, supporting and loving the divine feminine, both within ourselves and without. In order to do this, we need to find that divine feminine spark within us, the goddess within us, firstly and foremostly. Because until we have acknowledged and accepted and embraced that part within us, we can't find it in other men, and indeed in the world and in the women that we share this beautiful planet and time and space with. So we need to find it within ourselves first, and then once we recognise what it actually is that we're in support of, we dedicate the rest of our lives to supporting the divine feminine in her rebirth. No excuses. That's what good men do. So guys, what I really want to talk to you about is, you know, this thing that we do where we treat women like objects. You know, we call them things. We say stuff like, I'd like to tap that. You know, we call them pieces of arse. There's not a lot of respect for ourselves and for the women in our lives. And I've been blessed to meet a lot of men who are very different to this lately, and it's made it feel very, very safe for me to be a man again, knowing that there are other men like myself out there who feel the same way that I do. And so we need to start having this conversation as men. We need to provide safe space for each other as men to treat women differently to the societally accepted model, where we're superior, they're inferior, and they are objects to be desired, to be chased, to be fucked. It's not on. Yeah, and I've been one of those guys, and a lot of people watching this might go, oh, yeah, that guy's a hypocrite. Yeah. If I was still playing that game, I would be a hypocrite, because I have been a player. I have been a guy who treats women like meat. And I have no regrets, because if I hadn't have gone down that path, I wouldn't be sitting here today sharing with you what I'm sharing with you. So it brought me to a really full awareness and understanding of the beauty that is the divine feminine, and the need for all men to get on board with nurturing and supporting the divine feminine. Women should be free to express themselves however they want, whenever they want, to whomever they want. Women should be allowed to walk down the street naked without so much as a whistle or a hoot or a leery glance from anyone. It's not good enough that a guy can walk down the street or the beach without his top on, and that women can't women can't go down the street fully dressed without being objectified, without guys looking at their nipples, looking at their crutch, looking at their ass. And again, being raised the way we are, it's very, very deeply ingrained. It's very, very hard not to do. I still catch myself doing it sometimes, and have to centre myself and remind myself who I am, and what's really important. So, guys, we need to firstly make other guys feel safe in treating women with respect. When we're competing with each other, when we're literally, fighting over girls, and this happens a lot, you'll be at a party or at a bar or whatever with a couple of mates, and a nice girl will come into the room, and immediately there's this competition to see who can get her. And the talk starts, oh, look at her, look at her ass, or hasn't she got great tits? It's great to admire pieces of art. But when there's desire to have, to conquer, to control that piece of art, it's not healthy. We need to change our language, and we need to change our language with each other. We need to create safe space for other men to not get sucked in to that competition, to that way of talking and being about our women and around our women. It was so refreshing for me recently to be in Bali and have a few guys around me that when a woman walked into the room, a beautiful woman, and there's plenty of them in Bali, let me tell you, when a beautiful woman walked into the room, nobody batted an eyelid. There wasn't, the ears didn't go up, the spider senses didn't start tingling. These guys didn't go into, divide and conquer mode. They just stayed really grounded and really centered. And by and large, the women felt much safer in that environment. And this is what we need to do, We need to create this environment where, we're not chasing the women. Women don't want to be chased. Some do. Some are still stuck in that old paradigm. Some are still very brainwashed, culturally and societally brainwashed as to how the masculine-feminine dynamic is supposed to play out. But, we forget that we have both inside of us. And, I challenge any guy to go and spend a night or two in a gay club if he wants to know what it feels like to be objectified. It's a really, really fucking horrible feeling. to have other guys constantly touching you, looking at you, making suggestive comments when it's unwelcome. Now, everything changes if you give that person an invitation to touch you, to talk like that to you, to lust after you. But when there's no invitation, it's really, really wrong and really threatening. As a man, it's really threatening. I can't imagine what it's like for my sisters, my beautiful sisters, to have to endure that from the minute they start looking and feeling like women. Sometimes as young as 8, 9, 10 years of age it starts. Girls are getting pressured into sex at 10, 11, 12, 13 years of age because no one's had the balls to raise their sons correctly and to teach them to respect themselves and to respect the women in the world around them. When we create this safe space for women, they will let you know, and I'm sure many girls will back me up on this, they will let you know if they're interested in you. And they'll extend an invitation. And now that doesn't mean automatically that sex is on the table. It doesn't automatically mean that a relationship is on the table, or that flirting or sending naked pictures or anything like that is on the table. What that means is that an aware and connected guy will know when a woman is interested in him by the way that she is around him. Energetically, she will connect with him and say, hey, you make me feel safe. I want to be around you more. Doesn't necessarily mean sexually. They will let you know when the time is right to make an intimate advance. Without that invitation, guys, you are crossing over boundaries that should never ever be crossed by us. I've crossed them way too many times in my life that I, to care to admit to. I've been one of those guys. Now, I've done it recently. I wasn't focused, I wasn't centered, I wasn't grounded. And fortunately for me, when it did happen, the person that it happened with was really, really understanding and actually did some work with me around it, which was a really beautiful experience. So I'm really, really lucky in my life to be able to sit here and talk about this stuff, to have had the experiences and have met the people and had the advice and the nurturing, and mostly from women. There's been a lot of fantastic men in my life too, and you all know who you are. There's also been a lot of amazing women who have seen my light and allowed me to make mistakes and nurtured me beyond my old ways of being, out of that old paradigm and into this new way of being, this new way of thinking. And this is exactly why we need to nurture our women and the divine feminine, because that's the power that they have. See, it's a symbiotic relationship. We're useless without them and they're useless without us. Yes, we all have masculine and feminine within us, and it's great to harness both of those energies. No man is an island and no woman is an island. We have the two polarities for a reason. They are meant to come together. They are meant to coexist and co-create. And the relationship is beautiful when it's conscious, when it's aware, when it's connected, when it's of a high vibration. And so that's what we need to be doing. We need to be firstly raising our own vibration, our own consciousness, our own awareness, and then helping other people find that within themselves by creating safe space in which to do that, be them male or female. But it is really important right now that we nurture this feminine energy that is rising. And it's really, really important that as men, we start making it okay for other men to be in support of that, to be feminists, to be strong, but to be gentle in our strength. Not egotistical, not domineering, not controlling, not narcissistic, but open, vulnerable, loving, compassionate, humble, beautiful men who create safe space for other beautiful men to birth, and then as a collective, we go out there and we provide a foundation on which the feminine can trust, can count on to grow, to blossom, to expand, and to bring the world back into balance. To see this paradigm of shitty masculine energy leave the earth plane for good, for women and men to live and work harmoniously towards the common goal of creating heaven on earth. Because that's what is available to us, guys, and it's available to us within this lifetime. It's not some far away, pie in the sky, one day Alice in Wonderland kind of dream. It's actually going to happen really fast if we get our shit together. This is what the whole 2012 thing was all about. It was about the veil coming off. It was about people seeing through the illusion of the singular gender roles. It's about seeing through the illusion of government and corporations and banking and power and greed and corruption and all that crap that exists. I say crap, and it's actually a necessary part, just like I had to have the experiences that I've had with women to become a feminist. We also need, as a collective, we've needed to have wars and famines and poverty and disaster and all of that stuff, and greed and corruption. We've needed to have all of that to identify it, to accept it, to embrace it, and then to overcome it. We don't overcome anything without surrender, complete and utter surrender. And that's a very feminine quality. If you think about the act of love making, the woman has to essentially surrender to the man penetrates the woman. Okay? And a lot of guys don't really understand, and I only just recently came to understand how fucking powerful that is. That a woman allows you inside her body. Think about that. Inside her body. And for us to perform that act without the highest level of consciousness and admiration and respect and love is just shit. I'm sorry, guys, but it is. It's really shit. We got to lift, man. We got to take this thing to a whole new level. It's not about just fucking. There's so much more to sex and sexuality than that. There's so much more to reality than that, if there is such a thing. There's a lot of work to do, and I want to keep having these conversations. I know, it's going to take a bit of time, and I genuinely believe it can happen and will happen in our lifetime. Like a snowball or like an avalanche, the more momentum we get, the faster this thing's going to happen. The more of these conversations we have, the faster it's going to happen. So I'm challenging you guys to go out and have this conversation with other men. Start creating that safe space for each other first and for the women in our lives. And let's really pull together and create heaven on earth. Let's create something worth dying for. I think that's really all I want to say for now. There's a lot more in me that wants to come out, and in time it will, but I'll keep it short and sweet, and expect another video from me soon. Thanks very much for listening. Bye.